Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Corey Palm-Tanner. That's it. Head coach Tony Ersland. As always, guys, good to see you again. Been a couple weeks, but I know it's been a busy couple weeks. It's a weird time right now. Practice is right around the corner, deep into the semester, but what we're even deeper into is recruiting season. I know it's been crazy busy on that front. Without getting into specifics and getting Jacqueline McGill and all the folks over in compliance in our back pocket, we'll talk in generalities here. Now,
let's not create more work for Jacqueline, please.
Absolutely, Coach. This may surprise you, but back in the day, I was not heavily recruited in anything. They don't.
Well played, Corey. Well played.
A modest approach here.
They don't give scholarships
as we slide into this.
Pretty. You have to do something with it. So I was
like that guy over your shoulder, Corey. Like that guy.
That Superman over here. Yeah. He was recruited. I wasn't so much. But that said, Tanner, I know you played ball, but anyway,
Corey. I was barely recruited more than you. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I was recruited at the D3 NAIA level, which is basically like a letter, and that's it. No, but in all seriousness, when recruiting season is elbow deep like you are right now, what's that look like? What is a recruiting weekend in general from our perspective?
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, there's a lot of things that are similar, and then there's a lot of things that are very different because, your whole goal is to give the kids a very good feel for what it would be like to be a student athlete at your school, right? So definitely time around your student athletes so that they're aware of the culture of your team and the expectations, and your staff is a very big deal. But then at the same time, you're trying to get them in front of people academically, who can talk to them about what their needs really are. You have different majors, different emphasis as far as, a career choice could be. So there's a lot of similar things that we do for all of these kids. And then there's those very, individualistic things where you want to cater to what's going to be specific to them. And so while a lot of it looks similar, there's so much that is very different. And I like that because it doesn't lead to the same thing each weekend. But again, you're trying to highlight what it is to be, at your school. The thing I will say, though, that I found interesting, because this goes to entertainment, especially last week, which I really loved, and we were talking about a little earlier, is we had guys go axe throwing for the first time. That was a new activity where they had downtime with the team. We're done with dinner and it's time with your host and the team, which is so important, as I mentioned. And now axe throwing is a thing. Like those guys went out and they threw axes, and we had some guys do really well, so we had one guy go play disc golf, right? Like I heard the next day he played 22 holes of disc golf and loved it.
They were out there forever.
Right? Like they're out there walking miles playing disc golf. And then at night they were playing board games. And so that just kind of goes to, each his own, right? There's a fit for everyone. And so you want to make sure they understand like how they would fit in at your school and with your guys, and that they're comfortable with that. So yeah, it's a lot going on, and it's a lot of work because I think we really pride ourselves on being very organized. Obviously our guy here, Tanner, is a huge part of that, where the itinerary is built out and scheduled in an organized way. And it just takes a lot of moving parts to come together to make it successful. But we feel really good about it. We've had a couple of great weekends. And so I'm very happy how recruiting's gone so far as far as the campus visits are concerned.
I think that also speaks to, Tony, you brought up something that you triggered something in my head, is the fact that, like, I think it's funny what a variety of guys we have on the team. We have guys that are into so much different stuff. We have guys like to fish and hunt. We have guys like to play disc golf. We have guys like, they went and checked out the volleyball game against Ohio State. Shout out Dave Chondell and his crew for a huge win over the Buckeyes.
Big win, 5 sets, exciting.
Crazy atmosphere. I think it's really cool how diverse our group of guys is, and how they're all into some different stuff, and so we're able to take all these guys that are so different, and even prospective student athletes that are so different, and kind of let them all meld together and find their way to home, which is what we all like this place to be.
No doubt. And even though guys have different interests and different things, I think, it's common amongst teams that you have lots of little different cliques, so to speak. And we definitely don't have that here. Our guys all enjoy each other and they run together quite a bit. And of course they can still go off and play disc golf or do whatever. But I know too, that a big activity for this team, especially here in summer and fall, has been, let's go play wiffle ball, wiffle softball, where they get together at night and that's something they all get together and do. So it's fun that you can take a lot of different guys with different personalities and they're kind of, together, with everything that they're doing. And that's a big deal. We make that a priority for everyone who visits campus.
How do you go about figuring out that fit, that personality? Okay, who am I? Let's play Fantasyland here. 16-year-old Corey Palm is being recruited by Purdue. How do you go about finding out who I am and who to match me up with, what activities to do, and so forth?
I just think that starts early on when we start kind of doing our little questionnaires and phone calls and texts, right? Like that's the goal. It's not every time you get on the phone to pitch Purdue, right? To sell Purdue, because, and I know we all believe this, Purdue has so many things that sell itself, right? I mean, academic, it's a great school. We're in the Big Ten. My staff, our staff is very strong. We have lots of great things that are just inherent and built into this, resources. We have a strength coach. We have a dietitian. They're all heavily involved. So we have all, let's go Nikki academically, right? We have all of these things and resources built in around the program. So for us, a lot of it becomes, who are they as people and how do they fit here? Because at the end of the day, in 24 years of coaching, I've seen, a lot of kids choose colleges for different reasons, but the one that lasts is that they feel comfortable and supported at this school, because majors can change. You can go in and say, well, hey, I want to be an engineer. And you get here and you're like, yeah, this isn't what I want to do. This is what engineering is. It's not me. And so you want to go down another path. And so really the things to me that last is the relationship piece and the culture. Do they fit? So I think we work hard at that, getting to know the guys on a lot of different levels. And that hopefully, shows when they're here on their visit.
And we talk a ton about it internally. I think that's, Corey, that's another interesting kind of thing that goes on when we in preparing for these visits. Tony said, he talked about how much goes into it. And I would be remiss if we didn't, bring up Candace Musser, our office manager, and the role that she plays in helping navigate campus and who goes to see who and what time and like fitting the whole puzzle together. But we talk at length about like who does recruit A fit with on the team? What house do they fit in? What houses have stuff going on this weekend? Does this guy have a big test? Does this guy have this? Yeah. So, it was so funny. We had a kid a few weeks ago, a student host. We're like, well, what did you guys do last night? Well, I had to finish some homework before we hung out. And we're like, you're doing homework with a recruit on campus. We're like, hold on, buddy.
Wait a minute.
Let's talk through this for a second. Like, yes, we want you to be a good student. We want you to get your stuff done. But
yeah.
So it's a wild approach. And I think Tony hit it right on the head as far as the relationship piece goes, because as much as we get we don't typically invite young men to campus if we don't want them to be here. Right. Right. We don't host them for the official visit if we're not really interested and we don't, want them to be a part of what we got going on here. But we want to make sure that the fit is there for everyone. It's not just in our best interest. It's in the recruit's best interest to really hammer home that fit. And so, we talk to the guys a lot beforehand. We talk to the guys a lot afterwards. And we try to check all those boxes throughout the process.
Yeah. It doesn't do you any good, in my opinion, to get a kid here with smoke and mirrors, and then it's not what they thought, right? Like it has to be, what you've been talking about for the last several months or year even, or whatever that is, right? You have to connect the dots, I say. Like, we've been talking to you, and doing Zoom calls, and then we've given you all this good information. But now when you're on campus, it's time to connect the dots and say, yes, this really is what we've been talking about here for the past several months. And then there's that comfortability that comes with that, right? Like everything lines up, but if you get a kid here with smoke and mirrors, and they're not going to be happy. And then all of a sudden they're looking for the door. And that's something, again, that we pride ourselves on, that we have a good culture and kids want to stay and be here.
Especially not a lot of transfers.
Yep. Now
not a lot of transfers in the program with the portal. Yeah, the portal, it's so easy now. Kids are unhappy, they're out. They're gone. It's not hard.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to give you a why. They don't have to give you anything. They just can bounce. And I think it says a lot about our program that, like Ers just said, like our kids come here and they stay. We don't have a lot of transfers. We don't have a lot of guys looking for the door. So I think that's a hats off to you, Tony, and the approach that you have and what we got going on. And so, but it's definitely a whirlwind, and it's fun to get these people in here and get to know them and meet them and talk to them afterwards and so on and so forth.
One thing I think is awesome, the sort of unique experiences, like you said, the entertainment stuff, the extra, and that's awesome. That's very personal, very cool. But going to a Purdue volleyball match, seeing 2,600 people in there, seeing a Purdue team take down, a top 3 in the country program in any sport is really cool. On top of that, that's the venue that your potential student athletes would be competing in. So they get to, sort of visualize that, get to go to a football game down on the field beforehand. I know it was kind of special circumstances last week. Drew Brees and the 2001 Rose Bowl team were on campus, and a lot of different teams got a chance to get in front of them, and Drew gave a nice little speech here in Mackey. That's pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's a rare opportunity, like you just said. That's not a weekly thing, but it was certainly a lot of fun to take advantage of that opportunity, and I think everybody enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's cool for recruits to see an icon, as well as everybody that were on that team. They had more than just Drew up there, and so it was a lot of fun, I think, to get the different perspectives of the people heavily involved on that team. And so fun for a recruit, but also for a guy like me who enjoys the history of Purdue and what that means to those guys was special.
There were a couple of cool layers to that thing for me, and the fact that, like, getting to hear those guys talk about, what it meant to them to be, Purdue alumni and be at Purdue and have spent their career here, and, what their coach meant to them. Coach Tiller was, I had the pleasure of working a few years with Coach T when he was here, and getting to hear from his wife was really cool for me. In addition to the fact that, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, I was a huge fan, and I was in college at the same time as when we were going to the Rose Bowl. And I was actually at one of the games that they talked about and referenced during the thing, the Michigan win that they all talked about and referenced. I was on campus. I had a friend who played baseball at Purdue, and so I came over from Grinnell, and I was one of the first ones over the railing when we rushed the field to celebrate that Michigan win. So it was pretty cool to hear them talk about it and hear their perspective and all that.
So you were actually a part of one of the 3 times that the people rushed the field that year, which I heard Drew reference that a couple of times, right? He referenced it in the talk, in Mackey, and then he brought it up again, I think maybe down on the field. Yeah. And it sounded like a wild year when you've got people rushing the field every 3rd game or so.
It was bonkers.
It was wild. Yeah.
I'll never forget Tim Stratton, being crowd surfed with a flag in each hand, streaming because he couldn't find his helmet.
And
almost
missed the next game because he couldn't find it.
Yeah, Tiller was going to suspend him if he couldn't get it. Somebody ended up they told him he got an anonymous message, and this is back before texts and everything, right? He got an anonymous message to go back to the place where he lost it. And they went and they had left his helmet in the middle of the field.
No, I did not know. Pretty cool.
True story. Yeah, that was how that all went down. So pretty cool experience. I hope that our student athletes that got to go to it and the recruits enjoyed it, even a fragment as much as I did, because I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yep. The other thing I'll bring up, and I know we hadn't discussed this as much, but it's worth mentioning to me because I think it's such a good part of the experience, is the photo shoots that we do. We get a lot of comments on that. That's a very different experience, I believe, compared to what most people do, and kind of goes to our organization and attention to detail as well as the great people we have, right? When we talk about all of these tremendous resources to, these student athletes, that's a fun experience. I think that really kind of sets us apart from other people on these visits. And that's always a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun watching these kids kind of do a lot of the different shots with parents and siblings and coaches and hosts. And that ends up being quite a fun experience as well.
Yeah, I think it's been really funny for me, in the fact that, we got 2 new singlets we're going to debut this year that we worked with our good friends at Nike to help us make. And it's funny, none of the guys on the team have even worn them yet. Only a couple of them have even seen them, but the recruits get to get in there and get decked out in them and put them on and see what they look like for the first time in the black and gold. So it's one of my favorite parts of the visit. I think there's a level of excitement, and there's that glimmer in their eye as far as getting that experience and whatnot. And it's always amusing to me to see how the parents factor into it, because some of them are really into it. Some of it are like, trying to like shrink into the background. And I think, all of our photographers that are involved in that experience are fantastic. And we appreciate their time and efforts for sure.
Before we get away from recruiting, we don't have to touch too long on this. I just want to make sure I mention it. This is probably something that parents appreciate more than the prospective student athletes. I know virtually every time you ask for time with the president's office, President Daniels is very generous with meeting with prospectives, and he has his little deal he goes through presentation. And this is a cat that worked in the White House. He was a multi-term governor. He could have been president, quite frankly, I think, if he'd wanted to be, of the United States. Instead, he's president of our university. And that means so much to have that kind of buy-in all the way to the top.
Yeah, and that's really important, especially coming out of COVID, right? I mean, you talk about that. Not only is he's willing to meet with our recruits, which says a lot about him and his support for athletics, which is a big deal. But his approach to everything last year in the toughest of circumstances has led to where we're at this year with another huge freshman class, largest ever, and Purdue coming out in relatively good shape, right, comparatively to other schools. Mm-hmm. So I think we all really appreciate that. And again, he found time. We hadn't seen him in a long time, right? We couldn't get in a room with him because of COVID and those circumstances, but he was gracious in his time again to greet some recruits and kind of give his thoughts and perspective on things, which I think is always important, because it just goes to the support while you're here as a student athlete, how we will support you. And that means a lot, especially to a guy like me.
And I'd like to add on to that, the trickle down effect, with people in athletics, such as, Mike Babinski, our athletics director, Ken Halpin, our deputy AD, Tim House, head of John Purdue Club associate AD, Calvin Williams. I could keep going and going and going. Yeah. The people who are incredibly busy and are willing to take time to meet with our student athletes who they may share, some sort of personal connection with because they're from a similar part of the country, or they went to the same school as one of the parents, or it's always amazing to me some of the connections that we find in some of those meetings where they can relate on a specific level. Mm-hmm. Ken Halpin even told me a story. Tony, I don't know if I told you this one. So we had a recruit on campus that Mike wanted to meet with. And so he was also trying to hire Ken Halpin at this time. And so Mike had taken the private jet to go meet with this candidate for the deputy AD position, who we ended up hiring. And he told him, he's like, hey, I'd love to stay longer. We're having a great talk. This is going really well. I got to jump on the jet and get back to West Lafayette because I got to meet with a recruit for wrestling. And so just to hear that story and know that, like, we are that important to our athletics director, I think speaks a lot of Purdue. I think it speaks a lot of Mike, and I think it speaks a lot of what we've got going on here.
Yeah. That's a great
Tony,
story.
I hadn't told you that, did I?
No, I did not know that. That's where he was. I knew he was coming back.
Yeah, right. We knew he was.
I did not know where he was and what he was doing. So that's
he was
here.
He was with Ken.
Who's
I think
here
that
now?
story might be coming up at your next review.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't have that review anytime soon.
There you go. Oh man. Well, guys, this has been really, really enlightening. It's really cool to see sort of behind the curtain a little bit. I hope our listeners and viewers enjoy it as much as I did, because most of us don't get a chance to do this. And for those that maybe do, it sounds really special.
Yeah, it is a very fun part of the process for us. Clearly a lot of work. I think we all go to bed early on Sunday night when the weekend's over because it takes a lot of organization, but it is a lot of fun. This is one part where I still really enjoy meeting the family, showing them Purdue. We have great things going on, right? The team's in great shape. We have some of the best recruits in the country on campus. So that's all very positive and continues to be kind of one of the more fun aspects of recruiting for us.
For sure.
Very cool.
We'll transition a little bit here. Big weekend in the wrestling world coming up. The World Championships in Oslo, Norway.
Yep.
Corey, did I say that right? Is it Oslo? Or is it...
Oslo, yep.
Okay, just checking. I like to have it right.
Yeah, get the emphasis on the right syllable, will you? Come on.
Right.
I don't even know what to do with that. I don't know what to do.
Just keep moving then. Just keep moving.
USA sending a pretty outstanding team across the pond, looking to bring home, quite a few medals and make some noise over there.
Yeah, and again, most of the people, especially looking at, the women in the freestyle, came back. They wrestled in the Olympics a few short months ago, and here they are again. I think we mentioned, doing our Olympic show wrap up, that Gable Stevenson was one of the only ones, right, who didn't come back. But there you have Nick Wazowski, a former medalist as well in the lineup.
He's not bad.
All of these guys who medaled, and we're excited to get back in there, as well as the group that we added from the trials here a short while ago. So, which includes Burroughs,
right?
So, yeah, pretty formidable group, as well as the women. And so just excited, and you hope to see, kind of Greco make a step forward again, right? That's another opportunity to compete and test themselves. So should be a good week out there in Norway.
You brought up JB and obviously it's got to be exciting for you to see him and your guy, James Green, join the group and make this trip with the added weights for world championships. JB looked pretty good at 79, huh?
Yeah, I did. I texted him right after he won and said, buddy, 79 kilo looks like it suits you pretty well. And, he echoed that. He said, yeah, feeling good. And, when you're his age and you're feeling good, the body's hanging in there for you. Boy, that's tough. He's got all the experience in the world and he doesn't look like he's lost a step. So I'm excited for him. Obviously, you talk about Greasy, back at 70 kilos. So really excited. Again, that's kind of his natural weight class. It's a bummer that every Olympic cycle, he's got to make that choice when the weight class is decreased. But man, he's looking tough as well. So just excited for those two guys, wish them the best. And obviously all of Team USA, I think they got better. They only got better, with the team they're taking.
You see these guys achieve what, is the ultimate pursuit in their sport. And, I thought it'd be fun to kind of look at some of our guys, that are chasing that are going after those goals. And while we do not have someone on that world team, I think it's fun to note that we have had guys that have been on world teams and that are, they're placing at some of these national events, and they're having quite a bit of success. And I think that speaks well to our efforts in some of those realms.
Oh, for sure. No, I think, that's a part of the experience and the path. Even when you talk about recruiting, right? Like we just spent a lot of time on that. Experience is still so important to a large number of those men, right? So it's a huge part of our sport, and it's a priority to us. And we make sure that our best kids and those kids that want to have that opportunity are at U20s, U23s, the U.S. Open. We had Parker Phillips placed at the Open. We had, guys like Max Lyon and Parker and all of those guys, at U23s for universities, all doing well. So it's a big deal. It was a little disappointing because COVID took some opportunities away and they had to reshuffle that calendar a bit, which kind of was a bummer, but really excited to see everything kind of hopefully come back this spring. Like we get on a more normal schedule with the Open U20s again in April, and then going into universities in June. So I look forward to that more normal return for these guys to be on that schedule where we can have a regular college season and then roll into the freestyle aspect of making world teams. And obviously, when you talk about that, a guy like Matt Ramos, who chose to join us because, he felt like he was going to have that personal support to help get him on those world championship teams again and have those opportunities is a big deal. So we really look forward to the spring and those opportunities for those guys.
I thought U20s was a bit of a bummer for us this last year because of the timing, being right in line with our finals here at Purdue and that calendar. And so we had some guys who, made the very wise choice to academically stay behind and make sure that they were doing the right things in the classroom. And, unfortunately that denied them a shot at a placement there and a potential there. You got a guy like Kendall Coleman who was nicked up, had the injury from NCAA's last year. So he wasn't able to do the freestyle season. So,
No, it was just a rough year. Rough and I don't mean just for Purdue. I just mean for everybody, right? Like you had guys in and out of quarantine, isolation, thinking about where we were in the fall. COVID was still very much, thriving. You didn't have the vaccine yet. So I think that's why I look forward to it. Is we had a very normal summer of training. We've been able to conduct business and train the way we need to, and we've not had guys going in and out of isolation and quarantine. That stop-start, I think, is what really kind of disrupted a lot of things. And if there's one thing I believe in, it's preparation. If you're going to go compete for a national championship, you got to prepare, you got to train, you got to be serious and focused on what you're doing. And we had a lot of guys, just have training disrupted because of those things. So, again, that's why we really look forward to the spring and a more normal schedule where you can really train and prepare as you should for these marquee events.
Interesting question here, and this is definitely outside of my area of expertise, so I'm kind of curious as to how you want to speak to this. With folk style and freestyle being so different, how do you make that transition and get guys to have a lot of success in both? You look at a guy like Thomas Pinola, who's placed at the last two U23s. And you look at, like you brought up Parker and Max, and you go back to a guy like Christian Brunner. How does that transition work from the end of the season? And how do you get the carryover from guys that are doing well? Thomas Pinola makes round of 12 at NCAA's last year, and then takes fourth at the U23s. Like, how do you make that emphasis carry?
Well, I think your best kids want to win at the highest levels, and they're sharp. Their attention to detail is is super good, right? So they're paying attention to what needs to be done to win at each level. Okay. And then it's just getting the repetition in the positions that they need to allow them to have success. And it could be harder for others, right? Like some transitions are much easier because of where your skill sets lie. I mean, let's look at you look at a guy like JB again, and his strength and the way the rules were structured for freestyle, it was an easier transition. Certainly he had to learn from a parterre standpoint, how to navigate that both defensively and offensively. But that the skill sets he possessed made an easier transition. You take somebody who's primarily mat based, and boy, they may have to spend a lot more time in other positions on their feet. You know what I mean? From the push outs and the edge of the mat rules, or even finishing your attack. So it's focusing on the details that are going to give you the biggest difference. It's different in one's based on control and one's based on exposure, right? Like folk style wrestling is controlling your opponent. You have to control him to score points. That is not even the case in folk style. You can be attacking and all I need to do is expose you. And so getting the change in mentality and making that comfortable in what you have to do to have success. And that's just repetition. But I think we have tremendous coaches. We've had coaches that have been on world teams, that have competed overseas, that have coached guys, right, that are world medalists, Olympic medalists, Olympic champions and those things. So it's just getting them comfortable with the changes that are required to have success. And the best kids dive into that like folk style. They're going to figure it out. And I strongly believe that there's a strong correlation between, our best kids NCAA wise, and then what happens as you move into the international styles. That still translates and correlates well. So yes, it's different, but man, those kids pick it up and they run with it. And that's what's been going on for years when you talk about training opportunities that all these kids had at the different levels, cadet, junior, university. They're so much more prepared than they used to be because they've had access to great coaching and great competition. So they've figured it out, right? They've had those opportunities and they've started to figure out what has to be done. So I think typically they're further ahead, than where kids have had, been when I came out, for instance, we didn't have all of those opportunities. And so you see them really taking advantage of it, and they're ready to go at a much earlier age than what had, been maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Except for Corey. Corey was definitely ready to go at that age.
Let's go.
There was no break. He just rolled right into it.
Plug me in and I'm ready. Oh.
Corey, you have anything else to add on that as far as questions or how that works?
No, I don't think so.
You and I are the ones that are kind of on the outside of that conversation. So I didn't know if there's anything else you were wondering about.
No, it's super interesting. I never thought of, different skill sets, different inherent skill sets or things that already exist leading to, it totally makes sense, but I never thought of it in those terms. So that's why you're the coach.
It's the technical requirements are very different. And even the mentality, right? Like you can get in on a leg in freestyle. And again, I don't have to control you to score. I just have to expose you.
Right.
So in my opinion, you get freestyle that really allows for a lot of creativity in your techniques. And so sometimes fighting to control the finish isn't the move. The place you need to take wrestling is just to get your exposure and move on, where you're going to fight to finish down on the mat and control his hips and move to the next hold, transition. And then that kind of thinking, needs to be incorporated into your scoring. And so that's why have that transition. Those kids who have wrestled a lot of freestyle, it's inherent to them. They can flip back and forth a little easier versus a young man who, it might be his first couple tournaments and he's fighting to finish and control when, hey, we don't got to control. Let's just tip him and get the.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
I think that's all I got this week, guys. I think it's been we got a lot of thank yous in the Lafayette community for all their support over the last couple of weeks, and the different restaurants that we've been to and catering partners that we've worked with. And so, we continue to send our thanks to the greater Lafayette community for their hospitality. Shout out to Stephen Karn for hooking us up with transportation and getting folks around campus. and the various golf carts and scooters and whatever else is out there that we use. You know, it's been like Tony said, it's been a lot of fun, but man, it's exhausting, but definitely.
When you're talking about a party of, say, 22, you know what I mean, which, you know, just was a case here this last week, when you're talking about trying to get 22 people reservations and move them around in golf carts and transportation, like there's just a lot that goes into that. And Tanner thanked everybody. So I just want to echo that as well. Like we appreciate everybody working to help make it a positive experience for our recruits on campus. And we've got a lot of strong feedback, you know, on these last couple of weekends with recruits. So it is greatly appreciated. And, you know, we feel like we're doing a good job.
All we can say is keep it up, right?
Got another one this weekend, buddy. Homecoming. So we'll do it again and run it back.
Homecoming should be a good time. We got football's got the Gophers here on Saturday. Volleyball's got a couple home games.
Friday night,
we're going to see if we can have a really nice time with everybody and do the thing, you know?
Well, it's like I said, appreciate the look beyond the curtain. I think we'll leave it there. We'll let you guys rest up for this weekend. All right.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm gonna need it.
No doubt.
He's got a nap in. He's got a nap in on the calendar after this, so we're good to
go. Because he'll be in the room all afternoon probably. So. Guys, thanks again. We'll catch you down the road. Until then, boiler up.